I had another video planned for this devlog. However, on my last video, I received a question that I thought was great and I felt like deserved a response of its own. Lostjo asked, how do I stop getting the feeling to always stop and that it's going to end up bad? Bad being the project or whatever you are working on. Now, I love this question for multiple reasons, but mainly I was struck by it because the very night before, I was struggling with this exact feeling. I had just begun working on the rough cut of my short film and I was feeling devastated. I felt like what I had wasn't enough, I had wasted so much time for nothing, and that the short was going to turn out badly. I stepped away from the project for the night and reminded myself that this is just the first step. Before we go any further, I really want to congratulate Lostjo on asking such a great question. By recognizing that this is a continuous problem in your creative life, it is the first step in getting past this problem. I myself only realized that I had a similar reoccurring feeling a couple years ago. I was working on a project that would ultimately go nowhere, and I was filled with such self-doubt and frustration that I really just wanted to quit and stop the project. At this point in my life, I had finished many projects, so I knew that I was capable of finishing things, which truthfully in some way only made things worse that I was having such a difficult time. But I had a moment of clarity where I thought back to every other project I've ever done and realized that towards the beginning of the project, I had a moment where I always felt like I wanted to quit, that the project was horrible, and that I should just go do something else. At that moment, I realized that this feeling of wanting to quit is the first step of finishing a project. It sounds counterintuitive. You may start a project with a lot of ideas and excitement, but really, at this point, everything is just conceptual. The first step of completing a project is reconciling with yourself that this is something you actually want to see through to the end. Before we get any further, I think we should talk about why this happens. When you start anything hard or a new project, your brain is going to send you thoughts like, stop, quit, this sucks, let's give up, because your brain, much like your parents, just want what's best for you. Your brain is trying to protect you from getting hurt, from doing something potentially really hard with no definitive reward. But, like taking advice from your parents, or anyone else for that matter, you should take everything with a grain of salt and do what's ultimately best for you. And if finishing a project will benefit your life, then you just need to acknowledge any thoughts you may be getting, give them a polite smile, and say, "Thank you, I will take it into consideration." You can never determine if a project will be good or bad at the beginning. That is something that only comes with hindsight. So, now for the bad news. In my opinion and my experience, you will never not think something sucks, at least for a little bit. I'm sure there's people out there with unshakable confidence who, with every step of the process, are 100% sure of whatever they are doing, and that's great for them. But for us humans, that will not always be the case. So how do we get past this? Step 1. As I already mentioned, acknowledge that everything you are feeling is only temporary. It's your brain trying to protect you. The more you work on your project, the more your brain will accept that this is the reality you want. Step 2. Make decisions that inform the whole project. Don't worry about the details right now. Just think of the foundation. If you haven't seen the fantastic Double Fine Adventure documentary, I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite pieces of journalism about the creative process ever made. In this documentary, Tim Schafer talks about the creative process as a series of floating dots, and it's your job as the artist to take each one of those dots and place them on the blank piece of paper in front of you. However, your inclination is to not place the dots on the piece of paper because you just want to leave them floating up there as a possibility. I don't want to put words into Tim's mouth, but I feel like this is a good representation of the process I mentioned. When you leave all of the floating dots in the sky, sure, they may have unlimited potential and they may be perfect in your mind, but they are also never realized. The more time you spend in this conceptualization or idea of perfection, the more time you have to contemplate why it'll suck or why the project will not turn out good. I like to think about fine artists and relate it back to my work as a 3D artist. If you watch a time lapse of a painter or a sculptor, take note of what the first section of the project looks like, where they're just blocking everything out. If they were to stop at that moment, say step 1 or step 2, and never finish the project, the average person could objectively look at it and say that it's not good or that it sucks. But these are professional artists, and they know that this is only the foundation for good work to flourish upon. And if you'd like more information on how to build a foundation for good work, check out my first devlog about creating your own development pipeline. So make decisions, don't be afraid to lay the groundwork, and don't think any further than that. You can't run a marathon all at once, just like you can't finish a project all at once. Step 3, embrace the chaos. This one isn't as practical as the others, but just reminding yourself that every project starts out as chaos and that it's completely impossible to tell whether or not it will even be good should be a liberating feeling. Starting to work on a project that even you don't know where or how it will end up is an incredibly empowering and exciting idea. So have fun with it and let yourself be at the whim of your own creativity. So once again, thank you to Los Joe for such a great question. I hope that this is helpful not only to them, but to all others who feel similarly about their own projects. If you found any of this interesting and are curious to follow along with my Blender short film development, as well as explore the world of 3D in my upcoming videos, please feel free to subscribe. And if you have any other questions you'd like answered, don't hesitate to leave a comment below. Thanks so much.